is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we got round 3 or 4 or 5, I can't remember, with Jake E of the Almighty Cyhra. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Hey man, it's really nice to be back, and I love the art that you have in the background. I have a hinge of who could have made them.
Oh, really? I heard that guy's a total weirdo.
Yeah, I know. I kind of like him.
Oh, well, I'll be sure to pass that message on to him. I don't know. The guy's kind of weird. I feel kind of bad for the guy, but but it's so awesome to have you here because I think that the Vertigo Trigger. I've been following Cyhra since day one, and Cyhra was one of the first interviews to be on the show, and I was interviewing you for Letters to Myself. I was interviewing you for No Halos in Hell, and now with the Vertigo Trigger. Is this sort of like picking up where you left off after No Halos in Hell, or is it fair? I think it's fair to say a lot has changed between 2019 and now. This is almost like a new beginning for Cyhra.
Yeah, I was just in a radio interview just an hour ago, and I said that for us it feels weird, but in one way this is like the reunion or the comeback album for us because it has been such a long period since we released an album last time, and that was unintentionally, obviously, but because of the pandemic. I mean, like, I didn't do anything, Cyhra, anything to do with Cyhra during the pandemic. I was just like, fuck this. There's no reason to release music when we cannot tour on anything. So now we're back, but it feels like we're, having to climb up the same ladder that we already climbed before the pandemic, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, but I think you're climbing up it on a very strong level. I remember I was in Sweden last year, and I think you guys played Pub Anchor like 2 days after I left, and I remember seeing.
Yeah, I remember we spoke, and you said that I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I'm leaving on Thursday or whatever, and we played Friday.
Yeah.
Saturday. I don't remember what it was.
I was so pissed. Was everybody still hungover from Rolling Stones that day?
I think so. But we had a full crowd at that gig. We did this show. So the cool thing with that place, it's just a small, tiny bar. And we had played Sabaton open air the day before. But my wife used to work at that bar.
Oh,
so
really?
the owner asked us to do him a favor because the bar had their 30th anniversary. So it's so cool to, come into a pub, play on like the tiniest stage that you've ever stand on, and the whole place is crowded, and it was like a really intimate feeling. It was a fantastic, a rememberable show. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It was funny. I remember going in there on my first day in Sweden, and there was like a local rock band. I think they were doing like Van Halen or Motley Crue covers or something like that. And the place you couldn't move in there. That place was epic.
No.
I guess that place is almost kind of like the rainbow of Stockholm in a way, right?
It is. It's like that, but with how to say this. Yeah, let's just call them the Swedish version. Yeah.
Yeah, the Swedish.
I'm not going to say anything stupid.
Fair enough. One thing I'm curious, I usually avoid asking what does the meaning of the record name mean, but just like recapping, Letters to Myself sounds like a very introspective album title. No Halos in Hell is almost kind of like a, you don't fuck with us sort of statement in a way, like a very attitude-driven statement. But the Vertigo Trigger has a lot of mystery behind it. That's almost kind of like a noun. It's like describing something. So in the end, like, is this a significant meaning than what we've heard from the previous two albums?
Absolutely, and you're completely right on the first two ones, and you're absolutely right on the third one as well. So the whole album more or less is about my death anxiety problems that I've been having since I was a kid. And I just decided to write about them because when the pandemic, I usually I say like this. So since I was 7 years old, death anxiety has been something that has come towards me in waves. But during the pandemic, it came towards me as tsunami, because all of a sudden, like you were sitting still, you were isolated, you were at home, you couldn't do anything, and all of a sudden your brain starts to like, okay, you're not focusing on thinking of 2,000 other things that I usually do during a day. And all of a sudden it was like, by the way, you're going to die soon. Blah, blah, blah. By the way, this guy died the other day. And you're starting to calculate on your fingers like, okay, I got 25 years left. If, all these fucking things came over me. So when it was time to write the lyrics for the album, I was saying to myself that maybe I should just use this opportunity to actually use this time and this possibility to actually use it as time with the shrink, but I have this session with myself, so to say. So it actually helped me to write up some of the steam that I have inside me when it comes to these subjects. So that was cool. And the Vertigo Trigger is, of course, I play with words, but it is what, like you say, it's a noun. It's like what creates that sensation, what creates that feeling, which button is it that you push, if you understand what I mean.
Well, and I find that really fascinating too, because I had a teacher when I was in school who said like a lot of the hatred that we feel in the world, a lot of the anger and a lot of the unrest and all this that we feel inside, it could all be traced back to the anxiety that comes of not knowing what happens when you die. So it's really fascinating to express that sort of like death anxiety behind it. Would you say that maybe that the Vertigo Trigger is probably for you your most personal record?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that it's it's the only album where I've actually opened up and actually honestly told the audience that these songs are about me and my feelings. I've been extremely personal before, but I've done done it in the Ed Sheeran kind of way. I mean, like when I say the Ed Sheeran kind of way is that, for example, he has a big hit where he sings about his grandfather meeting his grandmother, and everyone believed that was a real story. But Ed just said that, no, I just made it up because it was a great story. My grandfather's name is not blah, 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 or whatever. But, that is the way that I've created lyrics before. I've created stories that some part of them is me, but, 80% of it is what other people can relate to, if you understand what I mean. But this album, these are my feelings. But at the same time, I guess that there's many people out there that feels the same way as I do.
Well, I got to tell you, my favorite song on this album is, or at least the one I relate to the most, is Fear of Missing Out, because I have that type of anxiety all the time. If there's a show happening and I can't make it for whatever reason, I'm literally have like, I don't want to say a panic attack, that's over dramatic, but you have that lingering anxiety. Like FOMO is a real anxiety that a lot of people have. And then, like the fear of being buried alive on song number 5, tapophobia, yeah. I think is how you say it. That's an actual like fear that some people have. So it's funny. I feel like really that this album is like a retrospective of a lot of the modern day anxieties we feel as a human. Like Too Old for Fairy Tales, I thought was almost kind of like the most, and I mean it as a compliment, the most depressing title in a way, where it's almost like we're growing up and I don't believe in that anymore. So it's almost kind of like
no. And here's what everyone gets it wrong, and I fucking don't understand this, because if you read the lyrics, throw Bibles in a firefight to save a life. What can the song be about? It has nothing to do with age.
Sorry.
No. I'm not saying it towards you. I just can't understand that no one gets it. The song is about Too Old for Fairy Tales. The song is my song that I always have on all albums. It's about religion, all religion. I am too old for the fairy tales that are written in these. It doesn't matter if it's the Bible or whatever religion. I am too old for the fairy tales, because for me it's just fucked up bullshit. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
That is my perspective on it. Of it. And when you have death anxiety and you're an atheist, and then you see religious proclamations, then you say, I'm too old for this fucking shit. But you can be 5 years old and say, I'm too old for this shit. And you could be 80 years old to be too old for this shit. But in every review that I've seen so far, they think that I'm talking about that I'm old, and that has nothing to do with the fucking fact.
But I wasn't entirely wrong. It goes with the
absolutely not, because I stopped you before.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Because I mean,
yes.
How many times I remember hearing people say that at like 10, 11 years old. I'm too old for fill in the blank. Like, in a way. So like,
yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's almost kind of represents that dead feeling where maybe like the imagination that you once had, or like something that, you know, you believed in at once and now it's dead to you. So it almost feels like that there is like an aura, like the Vertigo Trigger to me, it's almost kind of like an epic album to represent the pain of like growing older but wiser, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. The song that you were talking about, I liked your interpretation. Can't fucking speak today about the Buried Alive song. So for me, that song is more about the anxiety that you have, that you know that you only have X amount of days in your life, but you are buried inside of something like a relationship, that you're inside of a relationship that you know that you should go, maybe you should have it ended, but you're sticking to it because of something, or a job that you just have to have because you need to pay the bills and you can't afford to lose the job, you know, stuff like that. You want to do other things in life, but the life you have is demands on these platforms that you've created for yourself.
Yep. And when I look at the album listing, and forgive me for doing this if I butcher the song or ruin it for you.
No, you can butcher whatever.
But Life is a Hurricane, I did sing that. Life is a hurricane, I wanna die. Like, so just made it like a very happy song, but make it sound pessimistic as fuck.
There was one thing that was funny with that thing was when we released the single, everyone were commenting like, oh, I thought it was the DuckTales song, that it was a cover from the DuckTales. And here's the thing, when I grew up, nowadays it's different, but when I grew up, all cartoons were dubbed into Swedish instead of English. So the song were not called Life is a Hurricane, it was called something else. So I had never known that the original song for DuckTales was Life is a Hurricane, or Life's a Hurricane, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I couldn't figure it out in the beginning. Like, I was listening to the song like, it sounds nothing like the song. What do they mean? Mm-hmm. And then finally it was like, yeah. Light bulb over your head.
I'll never forget visiting my family in Germany as a small child, and SpongeBob was on, but it was dubbed in German, and it was the most terrifying thing I've ever heard. Like, I'm sorry, but SpongeBob sounded evil. Like,
in John Han,
yeah, exactly. Now, this is, I feel like, very heavy subject matter, and this is an anxiety that you've battled for such a long time. Was addressing this subject matter, I'm glad you were able to express it, because I think that this is an album that's, again, I think it's the most relatable Cyhra album. Do you feel though like this subject matter made the songwriting process? Did this maybe help you overcome your fear of that anxiety in a way, or was this almost like, for lack of better words, traumatizing in a way? Did it almost feel like you were almost using this fuel for your fire was almost deteriorating?
I would probably call the process of writing this album an ice patch. If you would be an athlete and you put an ice patch on something that hurts, I guess that after a while that ice patch is gonna become warm again and lose its purpose. I think that anxiety like this is never just gonna go away, because like it's a thought process in your head. For me, what always works for me is to keep my mind and brain busy, and always have tons of projects on a loop going on, so that I don't have to think. Because as soon as I lay down and I'm not thinking about something that I need to do tomorrow, or I need to do then, or whatever, then these dark thoughts comes to me. But as long as I'm occupied, then it's fine. This album, while doing this, it helped a bit to like push it into the corner, but it will always sneak out on you again for some fucking reason.
And in addition, one thing I've always admired about Cyhra, or one thing that I really think is so key to Cyhra's sound, I love the collaboration of both your voice and Jesper's guitar playing. As somebody who's loved everything Jesper has touched, from his work with Hammerfall to In Flames and everything. And, Jesper has always been open about battling his own personal demons as well. So was there almost kind of like a kindred spirit in writing this together, as I'd imagine there was a lot of anxieties that you were both having to overcome?
Yeah, so the whole first album, The Letters to Myself, all songs are one story in Jesper's life. So that is why the song on the album is called Letter to Myself instead of Letters to Myself. The Letters to Myself is the songs that has one story each. So I interviewed Jesper, and I wrote the lyrics out from what he told me. So that was how the first album came to be. So now I would say that Jesper has one album, I have one album. I guess that I have to interview Euge next time.
Yeah. Well, who does No Halos in Hell belong to?
The No Halos in Hell, you put it. You put the dot over the I, or whatever you say. How the fuck do you say that saying in English? I don't care. I don't remember.
I'm terrible at English, so.
But as the title says, I mean, like, don't come and fuck with us. I mean, like, we wanted to make a strong follow-up to Letters to Myself. The lyrics on that song is more like, bye-bye forever, fuck all the haters, we're here to stay. But also relatable lyrics in a way that it might mean something to me, but it could be interpreted as something completely different from the listener's perspective.
Yeah. And which I think is, I felt like No Halos in Hell was written at somebody, whereas Letter to Myself and the Vertigo Trigger are to yourselves in a way, if that makes sense. And by the way, you mentioned it. Is it Jesper or Jesper? Because after pronouncing Flor Jansen's name incorrectly, I've been just pronouncing every Scandinavian name that begins with a J with a yus sound. So.
But here's the thing. I suck at it, because like I always Americanize everything when I speak to an American. And sometimes I forget how to pronounce that. So sometimes I would say Jesper, and then sometimes I would say Jesper. So so the Swedish way of saying Jesper is Jesper.
Jesper. Okay. Yeah. Because I remember calling Flor Jansen one time, and those comments were pretty hilarious. But still.
Who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, not everybody from Scandinavia could be named Tomas. Okay, so.
No, exactly, and it's Thomas.
Thank you for proving my point. When it comes to like a lot of your lyrical writing, I've asked you numerous times about your lyrics or whatever. Do you sometimes have to go right into it? Do you just, pick up a pen and paper and write? Or is there almost like a lot of reflecting? Do you almost have to kind of like sit and look at the blank sheet of paper and think a little bit before you put pen to paper on writing?
Music is something that comes pretty easy for me when I sit in the studio, and I just, I always make music first, always. And I write something, then I hum something, then I change the chord because I hummed something different, or I came up with a better melody. And then the like vocal line versus music works a little bit together, but I could never start working on a vocal line before I have anything to sing with. But sometimes, the first thing that I start with might completely fly out the window, and there might be something else coming afterwards. But when it comes to lyrics, I always, when I have a ready idea on what the song is going to be musically, I start to sing, and I always mumbo jumbo. I just throw in whatever comes up in my head. And then I listen back to that and find out that, I actually said some pretty cool things here. I wonder what that means, because it's your subconscious that is talking to you in a way. So there's many lyrics where I've been saying stuff that I've never thought of, but I'm like, oh shit, that was deep. Okay. And then I've been writing something out, having that as a starting point, and then, you write around it.
Have you ever like done like an interview, or just even had a conversation with somebody where like you just overthink, you like look back at that conversation and be like, oh fuck, I think I had really good lyrics there?
No, but I had many conversations where I hang up the phone and I was like, what the fuck did I say? Did I just say that? Oh, that was stupid. Like all interviews you've ever done, because like I'm a pretty open guy, and I always like just say whatever it is that I'm thinking of, and then I realize afterwards that, oh, that was a secret, I shouldn't say that. But yes, absolutely. There's many times that you try to. You have a conversation with someone, and you like, oh, this would be a great movie, or this would be a great lyric, or whatever. But I also got 10,000 voice memos in my phone with like, oh, I have to record it. And then the day after, you go to the studio and you listen to it, and I could just like, it would make more sense, because when you get the idea, you hear everything in your head, but when you listen back to it a day later, it's just like mumbo jumbo. I can never interpret my own voice memos. It doesn't work.
I've always said that. So, many of my friends and I, going back to Too Old for Terios, but we all had an idea of what it would be like if there was an actual hell. What's our own personal hell that we create? And one musician said, my idea of hell is just an eternity in a realm of hearing all of my old voice memos and demos and stuff like that.
That would be fucking terrible. It would be terrible to hear anyone's voice memos.
Yeah, unless you're like
maybe like the only voice memos that I could probably think of listening to would probably be like Ed Sheeran or Celine Dion, because I believe that their voice memos are flawless.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows? Those voice memos though are like the skeletons in the closet in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watch like an old voice memo leak that just sounds so bad, and it just completely tanks somebody's career. Yeah. Oh, that's why you make a very good password for your phone.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. And I have a few more questions for you, but I've always said that art is very much life in a way, and especially with No Halos in Hell having a very cinematic aspect behind it. Those music videos, I haven't forgotten those. I mean, those were Matrix the musical. That's what I called it in a way. And and do you feel like that the music that you create but can evolve over time? Do you think that maybe the music can develop new meaning as more people interpret it and you play it more and more? Or do you prefer if every album you make is just a snapshot of who you are at that particular time in a way? Because the Vertigo Trigger, the Vertigo Trigger's coming out here in 2023, but you've mentioned you've been dealing with this anxiety for a very long time, so...
If I understand the question correctly, because it was
complicated like everything else I asked.
Cracking a little bit. I love when people do their own interpretation of whatever you write. I mean, like, there's so many Amaranth songs where people has come up to me and said that I love this lyric. It has meant so much to me, and blah blah blah. And I always ask them, okay, so what does it mean to you? And they say like, yeah, it's about a banana. And I'm like, okay, great for you that this song is about a banana, but I wrote it about a squirrel.
What
You understand what I mean?
What Amaranth song was about a squirrel?
No, of course. All Amaranth songs are about squirrels, but that is another thing. No, but you understand what I mean. I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's so nice to see when people believe that a song is about them, but it was about something. So I like that. I don't want it to be an imprint in like, this is who I am now. I want it to be something that people can go back to or find again. And, you know, like, who knows? I mean, if you write an album about yellow cars and yellow cars are completely out of the market, like no one cares about yellow cars, but in 10 years, yellow cars is the best thing there is. Maybe your yellow car album is going to be like, you know, Billboard, the top Billboard album. You understand?
Absolutely. Well, two things. One, Yellow Card, the emo band, just sold out a massive arena tour. But you want to see a demand for yellow cars? Come to New York City at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll see plenty demand.
You know, I'm there pretty often. I like New York.
Yeah.
The funniest thing involving a yellow car in New York was when we were recording the first album, and Jesper calls me, and he said, "Oh fuck, I've lost my way. I don't know where I am," and blah blah blah. And I gave him the address to the studio, and I said, "You couldn't have gone far," like, and I was debating with him back and forth. And then finally, I asked him, like, what's the name of the road and what's the number of the road? Like, come on. Oh, I don't understand that, blah, blah, blah. So finally I tell him, call an Uber or take a cab. And he goes into a cab and he says that, okay, I'm in the cab now. He turns right. And he turns right again. Oh, there you are. He was 2 streets down.
That cab driver must have looked at this guy. I would have been like, okay, this guy's definitely lost. I'm mugging this guy, and like, oh man, that cab driver's an angel.
You know, when you're on 45 and you're going to 47 and you can't realize that, like, oh, it's 45 here, it's actually be on 47. Oh, okay.
Oh man, I am so glad that you said that on the interview. And next time Jesper comes to New York, I'm gonna mention that, Tim. That's gonna be my new story. Be like, oh Jesper, yeah, I'm 2 blocks away from the show. I'm just gonna hail a cab before we do this interview.
Please do.
Yep.
It was extremely fun. That was the funniest thing involving a yellow car I've ever been a part of.
Oh man, please write a song about that.
Yeah, the song's going to be called 2 Blocks Away.
Hey, we're on to something. Just make sure you credit me. And the final question.
Why are you going to get credit for that?
Because you heard it here on Heavy New York.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go. And the final question I wanted to ask you is depending on what you're singing about, if it is more personal or more fantasy oriented, because with all the bands you've been involved with now, you know, you've tackled fantasy work, as we've seen with Amaranth, but with Letter to Myself, it's more about Jesper and so on. So like, depending on what you're singing about, do you feel like you channel a different energy or it resonates with you differently when you're singing it?
I always thought that I never wanted to be personal in my lyrics. I mean, like Amaranth, at least the first 2 albums with Amaranth that I'm extremely proud of, that is a movie script. I mean, there's a story, there's a following story. If you put the songs in a specific order, I don't even know the order nowadays, but you will be able to, you're going to be able to read a story about a man who's finding something that he shouldn't find. The government takes him, freezes him down, and he wakes up in the future. And that is why the Nexus single starts like it does with us waking up in the future. So that's the whole storyline of that. And that is, of course, a fantasy thing. But I thought that was the only thing that I really wanted to do. But I figured out now that when I'm starting to think about personal thing, that gives you the possibility to sing in another way, because you could put real emotions behind the words, which I actually never thought that I could find. So that is actually really good.
Yeah, because and one thing I've never been critical of it because it's but like with power metal or symphonic metal, a lot of that, whatever you call it, I feel like a lot of it is very fantasy oriented. Like I feel like, you know, when I listen to power metal or, you know, whatever, because I hate the genre labeling thing, and sorry, my neighbor's dogs are barking, but
No problem.
yeah, but I feel like when I listen to that type of music, I almost kind of go into another world. It kind of allows me to go into my imagination a little bit. But with this style, with the Vertigo Trigger, it allows me to look more inward, where I'm kind of like, it's able to like give me a realistic. I feel like this is the realest album in the genre, if that makes sense. And
Absolutely, absolutely. But I actually also looked a lot to my friends in I Prevail, for example, and I would say that they taught me to actually let go a little bit, because like I was studying their lyrics, and I realized that, oh, they dare to actually talk about their problems in a personalized way. So if they could do that, why can't I do that?
yeah,
So I would say that I Prevail was actually the reason that I actually took the step and became really open personally myself.
yeah, and shout out to them. Because Amaranth brought I Prevail out on tour.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
There was, I think that was one of their first, or one of the bigger. It's obviously stupid to say bigger and I Prevail in the same meaning and use that tour as something big in the same sentence. But get me right, at that time the tour was big
Yeah.
for both Amaranth and for I Prevail. Now that tour would be oh, here's I Prevail's dressing room tour.
Yeah.
But that that has nothing to do with it now. I mean, like, now the guys play arenas.
Yeah, which is so cool. They still have that flyer. The Gramercy Theater keeps all of their flyers, and they still have that
Yeah.
flyer hanging up. I see it, and
They
it's
have.
yeah, they do. And it's so weird when you go to like they have like they're in the bathrooms, they're in the hallways, they're all over the place. Like it's like I don't know how they have room for all of it, but like you see flyers of bands that are huge now, but like you see them kind of like in the opening slot, and it's like it's seriously like I remember they have a flyer for that band Billy Talent. And opening that tour, there was like Billy Talent and like 3 other bands. Opening was this band called Bad Flower, and now they're huge. They're on every like massive stadium tour opening. I've seen them open the main stage at like every festival, and like they've been killing it. And now they're headlining, arenas. So it's so cool to see stuff like that.
I agree. And when it comes to I Prevail, I am extremely happy for them. I love their music, but they're also fantastic guys. And I'm just so happy to have, been able to have that band, opening up for you, that is now, bigger than you're ever going to be yourself. I'm proud of that.
I love that. Disturbed's first tour was opening for Danzig, Hatebreed, and 6 Feet Under. Like, My Chemical Romance, their first tour was opening for Misery Signals. Like, it's always cool to see that happen. And I've always admired, I feel like the Vertigo Trigger unlocks, though, another side of you that I've never seen before, because you have the ability to sing about a fantasy, or have the ability to go personal. And I also think you have the ability to relate to people. Again, Letter to Myself is Jesper's story, and that's a very important story and message. So to be able to approach that from different perspectives is very, very impressive.
No, thank you very much. I'm actually very happy to hear that, because not everyone listens to a singer in that sense. They will only criticize the singer for being good or being bad or being off pitch or in pitch or whatever. They never go as deep as you do with your analysis.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So before we go, I want to thank you as always for coming back on the show, and it's always great to see you again. Is there just anything else with Cyhra, with the release of the Vertigo Trigger, you would like to promote in terms of you have the record release show coming up? Is there any tours coming up that you're allowed to say? Of course, I hope US is in the future.
First of all, thank you so much for having me, because like it's always a fucking pleasure, and I guess that we could sit here and talk for hours.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna come over to New York very soon, and then I'm gonna catch up some time with you, and we'll do some rooftop drinking. I hope.
Sounds good.
You know that one of my favorite things in New York is to check out rooftop bars.
I live. In my apartment, I mean, we don't have a bar up there, but we'll hang out on my rooftop. You can see the whole city 360. So.
Yeah, that's fucking fantastic. No, and tomorrow we have the release show in Gothenburg here, and it's gonna be fantastic. And to all the fans in the US, yes, we're gonna come play hopefully next year. So we are gonna see you soon. Can't say any dates now because nothing is printed in blood. But we are gonna come, and until then, if you like the album, spread the news, spread the word, share the links, the videos, whatever. There's gonna be a really cool thing coming to on Friday as well, so don't miss that. Keep up on following all the social media channels regarding Cyhra.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Jake E of Cyhra, the Vertigo Trigger. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.